Well, it looks like you guys are going to be getting two videos today, and no, that is not an April Fool's joke. I think I'm a little too mature for those, but I realized I did not make a video talking about Cagliostro or Hassan of the Shining Star, and so instead of just kind of sweeping those under the rug and not talking about them, they're both really good servants that I have thoughts about, and even though my Hassan is not, fully leveled as of right now, because my JP resources are a little bit low, and my Cagliostro is, well, non-existent because I didn't pull him, I wanted to at least put out videos for, NA players or current JP players that want to know if these guys are worth going for. And we're starting off today talking about Cagliostro because this guy is an absolute house. He is so insanely good that I think maybe there's like some few small NP gain areas I might be able to talk about and nitpick, but even then, he still looks really good in those areas. And, maybe you could say that his damage isn't super insane. We'll talk about that as we go throughout the entirety of the video. I even have the damage chart and everything pulled up to kind of show where he could be at even at NP1. So if you guys like these FGO discussions, you like these servant reviews and breakdowns, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel because I do not only upload FGO content every single day, I have been known on occasions like today to double upload. So if you like that, you like having FGO content in your subscription feed, make sure you drop a subscription, and you also let me know your thoughts on Cagliostro. But first, let me go over and break this guy down, so you can actually drop an accurate take in the comments, if you think he's really good or he's kind of mid. Personally, I think this guy's a little bit nuts. So initially when he dropped, I did kind of check him out a little bit, but I was obviously more excited for the new Monte Cristo guy. And I was like, okay, well, he's an AoE arts unit with 41% NP gain and then only 4 hits on his NP. I was a little bit concerned with that as far as NP refund was going to be concerned. But if you can get somebody like Tai Sui, the new free-to-play that just dropped over on the NA version of the game for the Trunk Sister event, if you can get him to loop where it's not super pretty, but you can get it done, and he has, I think, only 3 hits on his AoE NP, then you can definitely get it done with this guy, especially with how insane the skills on this guy are. First and foremost, this first skill is a banger opening to a servant. A 50% battery, that is always going to be good, but then you're pairing it with 30% NP damage. Now, something that I always tell players to be mindful of is that, yeah, sure, Buster farming, you can really push through everything. You even get the 50% mana burst from, Oberon's third skill on top of, like, his potential, raising of NP damage that you have from his first skill, but art servants natively have a really good time using Black Grail, meaning they arguably get more out of Oberon than the Buster servants do. Like, sure, for the Buster servants, they can push through things, but in terms of value and being able to use them in a team comp, those art servants are starting anywhere from a 60 to an 80% NP damage buff if your Black Grail is max limit broken, which means Oberon's third skill goes so hard with the art servants that if you're going to give yourself an even further NP damage buff over here, 30%, you're setting yourself up for success. And I'll just show this right now. His NP damage is not natively super high, but I do think that might be equating for the fact that Oberon is, in the game, and you're going to be pairing him with all of your art servants if you have them, right? If you have Oberon, obviously I can't do that because I don't have Oberon on JP, but if I did have him in Cagliostro, they would go insanely hard, because this only accounts for the buffs that he has, not the buffs that he's going to be getting from Castoria and Oberon, and, not taking into account this over here, which again, you can see his numbers are actually getting pretty good once he gets his power mod, which we'll talk about in a second. So already off rip, any NP gain problems I was kind of having an issue with is, one, minimized by his second skill, but two, made up for by the fact that he has a 50% battery, not only meaning that if you're not using, say, starting charge CEs, he has a little bit of an extra fallback plan, but also if you want to bring him to 90++ content, having that 50% battery just makes him so flexible with the fact that you don't have to dump all of Castoria's buffs into him because it only takes both of their charismas to get 60% plus his own 50%, not including a pen skills or maybe the CE for the event actually has starting gauge. It's just very strong in and of itself, to the fact that this right here is just bonus. The fact that he hits the entire enemy party with essentially a chance-based skill seal every turn for 3 turns is just bonus. If it was just these 2 effects, it would already be really good, but now they gave him a little bit of just added utility when going into challenge quests. Also, I guess another thing to kind of talk about, I kind of glazed over, he is a pretender, right? The fact that he is a pretender is also going to be very useful for a lot of players because it's inverse alter ego. So instead of being strong against riders, assassins, and casters, he's going to be really good against your sabers, archers, and lancers. So that can be very good, which usually I'm not super high on, but over the years, I've come to appreciate the alter ego and the pretender class as kind of these pseudo berserker classes where you're getting the type advantage without getting the disadvantage, with maybe the one blemish being that if you run into, say, a boss fight that has an assassin and a saber, Cagliostro might struggle a little bit unless they're lawful, in which case he'll probably be just fine. And so already off rip, this guy was shaping out to be really nice, which, by the way, for y'all that didn't know, this is also a guy I was really looking forward to, more so than Bima and whoever the lady was. This was the guy that I thought had the coolest design, and I'm really sad I still haven't pulled him because of how good he looks on paper and some of the gameplay I've seen online. The guy looks really good, like being able to loop and do everything just fine. But again, just the first skill. You move over to the second one, as I mentioned, it does kind of fix up his NP gain problems, right? With him only having 0.41%, they gave him 30% bonus for 5 turns on a 10-turn cooldown. Yeah, this guy's gonna be ridiculous, bringing him into just different challenge quests, because not only that, he has a 5-turn guts that revives him with 10k HP, and then if it does ever get procced, because how are you going to get this 10k HP guts proc? Like, they're going to start having to just target this guy down, or maybe you're doing a solo, or you have no survivability buffs. They removed all your buffs and blasted you with an NP. For whatever reason, if it does happen, you just get free 30% NP gauge as well, which is kind of the Nemo effect that he has on his second skill, I believe, as well. And so it's just a very nice wombo combo. Not only do we have a very strong battery, which is just going to make any servant really strong if they have a 50% battery, but then we are starting to get the 30% NP damage instead of the 20% that they normally would have if they even got NP damage. So he's getting a little bit extra to make him play really nice with Oberon. But then if you were just having any other NP gain problems outside of that, they gave him a just solid NP gain buff alongside, again, just kind of a good viability when it comes to more CQ oriented content, you know. And as we saw with the lotto over on NA, people got reminded sometimes they will just throw 24 challenge quests your way. And if you're playing JP, you know, on the Bleached Earth, they are occasionally rolling out challenge quests over there on the Bleached Earth map. And so the fact that we're getting more and more difficult content probably means that characters like this that are really good for farming and that are also really good into more difficult content are going to become more high value as time goes on. That's just kind of my thing, my kind of take personally. But then we have the, you know, just decent arts buff over here, 30%. Nothing too crazy. It's not like he can stack above 50% and have like an ultra mana burst, but 30% is kind of just the standard. It's the bare minimum you want somebody to have. You know, it's what I would expect. So that's fine. It's buffing up his arts cards, buffing up his NP gain on his arts cards, his NP, all that good stuff. But I also like that he has a pseudo crit niche in here. Like, he just has 30% crit damage over here, which I think is kind of nice. Nothing too crazy, because it's not like he bombs stars or anything. You know, spoiler alert, bro's not really bombing stars or anything. He has a little bit of a crit star gen buff on his arts cards. That's a little bit of a niche that he has going on. But keep in mind, the reason that's really good on somebody like Caskill is that he buffs the crit star generation rate by 100%. And so the arts cards value of genning 0 cards per hit becomes 1 card per hit. And so it being 30%, it's just not quite as good as, like, say, the Caskill 100% buff, where everything becomes a guaranteed at least 1 star per hit on an arts card, right? So it's nice. He can drop a couple of stars, but I don't think he's going to be that crazy. But if you equip your Castoria, your Tamamo, or you bring Proto Merlin, who can drop stars on her own NP, and you have them in rotation, he can actually make use of those. And then this I also think is kind of interesting. He inflicts received buck success rate down by 10% on an enemy when he hits them with his normal card. It's kind of like the Jalter buff denial that she has on her own NP, but not quite as crazy, because let's say you bring him as a solo unit, you might be able to do 4 attacks in a Brave turn, right? So that's like 40% down. It's not quite guaranteed, but you know, it's nice. The enemy might just whiff random buffs that they should have. It's a little RNG for my taste, but it's kind of a funny gimmick that he has, so you know, I do kind of like it. Again, just a little bit of extra utility going into CQs. It's not the craziest thing, but on top of everything else that he's already doing, I think it's very strong. And then I've shown the NP a couple of times. It's just very strong. It removes all enemies' defensive buffs first, which is really, really strong. The only thing that's better than this is having the wombo combo of Pierce Invul and Pierce Defense, because then you pretty much can get around the unremovable defensive buffs and the unremovable dodge and invincibility buffs. But again, this is still really nice because, I mean, you see, we got solemn defense right there. You know, if they start throwing that on bosses, maybe we have to fight a Castorius for some reason, you know, that can be very good to remove that off of them. Again, this is not going to be very good for farming. The reduces damage by 20% for 3 turns. Unless you are relying on face cards, it can make follow-up face cards after the NP hit a little bit harder. This is going to be more useful going in to actual like challenge quests, because every NP of his will actually start to do a little bit more damage. Like subsequent NPs will get stronger and stronger. Then he has the power mod against lawful alignment, which there is a chunk of servants in here, but granted, you're probably just going to bring him against this kind of top half guys over here. If you're really desperate, you want to do a challenge run and you're like, oh, I want to bring him against this Martha CQ, even though he has, you know, type disadvantage, you could bring him to that, I suppose, because the lawful power mod would make him do some damage, I guess, but also a couple other people he's able to hit under over here. So yeah, it's not like the craziest, most swath of guys that you're going to be able to hit, but it's a decent bit of people. Like, it's not bad guys. I mean, you got like coups and stuff in here that you might see in CQs. I mean, if they ever bring the Samurai Remnant thing back, you know, it'll be good for the Iori boss fight as well, because that one was a tad bit annoying if I do say so myself. So yeah, I think the guy is rather solid. I wanted to give my thoughts on him and talk about why I think this guy is absolutely not broken, but really solid. My initial kind of thoughts on him is that he would probably land in like maybe an AA+. I don't like to fully, because again, like towards the end of the year, I'll do like my top 5 and I might do like a JP tier list, stuff along those lines. But as like right now, I want to kind of see how the rest of the year shapes out, because he seems really strong, but who knows who we're going to get by November, October. We could have servants that are so broken that they make this guy look ridiculously minuscule. I also wanted to show that his, what is it called? Bonsi over here. It's just kind of nice. Gives everybody, you know, lawful power mod. I just think that's neat if you want to give that to him. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. I think one of maybe the only things you could harp on is that if you don't get him at higher NP copies, maybe his base damage is a little bit low. But like I said, this will be a little bit higher in challenge quests because again, he does lower all enemies' defense by 20% before doing damage, so this will ramp up a little bit as you do subsequent NPs. And again, if you're going to be going in on the banner for, where's the guy? The Count of Monte Cristo, this guy, he's stupid broken, like probably the first absolute must summon of the year. If you're going to be going in on him, because when this guy comes out on NA, I might want to snag about NP2 just so I can crush everything in sight. If you're going to be going in on him, you're probably going to snag a couple copies of Cagliostro, as I believe, what was it? I think during Rasputin's New Year's raid up, that's when they buffed the 4-star rate by, what was it, like by 1% or something? And you can definitely kind of feel it when you're summoning on banners that you're pulling more 4-stars, but yeah, if you can snag NP2, 3 of this guy, you probably will feeling those effects a little bit less. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys later today for the Hassan video.